Hey guys, tonight, we're climbing somewhere high above the rooftops of Paris, where the iron smells like rain and your hands never quite stop aching from gripping cold steel. If you enjoy this sort of thing, maybe hit that like button and subscribe. I'd love to know where you're watching from and what time it is where you are, so drop that in the comments below. Now dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft hum, and let's drift back in time. You wake to the sound of rivets being hammered somewhere in the distance, though it might just be the rhythm of your own heartbeat echoing in your ears. The narrow room is still dark, but there's a thin line of gray light creeping under the wooden shutters. Your body feels heavy against the straw mattress, your shoulders stiff from yesterday's work, your hands already anticipating the weight of the hammer and the bite of cold iron against your palms. The air in the room is thick and close. You share this space with 3 other men, their breathing slow and steady in the darkness around you. Someone coughs softly, turns over on their mattress with a creak of old rope and wood. The smell of unwashed bodies and damp wool blankets hangs in the air, mixed with the faint scent of coal smoke that seeps through every crack in the building. You lie still for a moment longer, feeling the ache in your lower back where you slept wrong, feeling the soreness in your forearms that never quite goes away anymore. Your wrists are stiff, your fingers slow to curl and uncurl. This is how every morning begins now, with this inventory of small pains, this catalog of what the work has done to your body. Outside, Paris is stirring. You can hear the distant clatter of cartwheels on cobblestones, the soft shuffle of early workers making their way through the streets. Somewhere, a church bell tolls the hour, its sound muffled by fog and distance. The city breathes around you, slow and deep, like something large waking up. You push yourself up to sitting, your spine protesting with a series of small pops and clicks. The floor is cold under your bare feet as you stand, reaching for your clothes in the dim light. Your work shirt is stiff with dried sweat and iron dust, but you pull it on anyway. The fabric is rough against your skin, familiar now in its roughness. Your trousers are heavy canvas, patched at the knees, worn soft at the seat from months of climbing and kneeling and squatting on steel beams. Your boots are by the door, leather cracked and scarred, the soles worn thin from walking on metal scaffolding day after day. You sit on the edge of your mattress to pull them on, the leather cold and slightly damp from yesterday's rain. The laces are frayed, knotted in several places where they've broken and been retied. You pull them tight, feeling the familiar pressure around your ankles, the way the boots hold your feet like old hands. One of your roommates stirs, mutters something in his sleep. Another coughs again, deeper this time, the sound wet and harsh. You've all been coughing more lately, from breathing the iron dust and coal smoke, from working in the damp and cold. It's part of the work now, like the ache in your hands and the permanent stoop in your shoulders. You move quietly to the wash basin in the corner, though there's barely enough light to see by. The water is cold and stale, left over from yesterday, but you splash it on your face anyway, feeling it run down your cheeks and drip off your chin. It helps wake you up, helps clear the fog from your head. You dry your face on a rough towel that smells of lye soap and old sweat. From your pocket, you take the small piece of bread you saved from yesterday's lunch. It's hard now, stale, but you gnaw on it slowly as you prepare to leave. The bread is coarse and dark, full of grit that catches between your teeth, but its food in your stomach is empty and hollow. You chew slowly, methodically, making it last. The stairs creak under your weight as you make your way down to the street. The building is old, the wood worn smooth by countless hands on the banister, countless feet on the steps. You can hear other workers stirring behind closed doors, the soft sounds of men getting ready for another day of lifting and hammering and climbing. The street is narrow and cobbled, slick with dew and the remnants of yesterday's rain. The fog hangs low and thick, muffling sound and making the gas lamps look like dim yellow ghosts floating in the gray air. Your breath comes out in small puffs of white vapor, and you pull your jacket tighter around your shoulders. You walk slowly through the winding streets, your boots echoing softly on the wet stones. Other workers emerge from doorways and side streets, all heading in the same direction, all moving with the same unhurried pace of men who know they have a long day ahead. No one speaks much in the early morning. There's a quiet understanding between you all, a shared knowledge of what the day will bring. The fog is so thick you can barely see 20 feet ahead. Buildings loom out of the gray like ships in a harbor, their windows dark and shuttered. A dog trots past, thin and quick, disappearing again into the mist. Somewhere in the distance, you can hear the rumble of cartwheels, the clip-clop of horse hooves, the first sounds of the city beginning its daily work. Your hands are already cold, and you flex your fingers inside your pockets, trying to keep them limber. Cold hands make for clumsy work, and clumsy work on the tower can mean a fall, can mean death. You've seen it happen. You've seen men lose their grip, seen them slip on wet steel, seen them make one small mistake that sent them tumbling down through the scaffolding to the ground far below. As you walk, you begin to hear it, the sound that defines your days now. The rhythmic hammering of metal on metal, the ring and clang of rivets being driven home, the scrape and groan of steel being lifted and positioned. It echoes through the fog like a heartbeat, growing louder with each step you take toward the construction site. Other sounds join it, the creak of ropes and pulleys, the shouts of foremen calling out instructions, the steady thrum of the steam engines that power the hoists and cranes. It's a symphony of industry, of human effort and mechanical power, all focused on the single purpose of raising iron into the sky. The fog begins to thin as you get closer to the site, and gradually the tower emerges from the gray like some impossible dream made real. It rises higher every day, this latticework of iron beams and rivets, this framework that seems to defy the very idea of weight and gravity. Even in the dim morning light, even shrouded in mist, it takes your breath away. You've been working on it for months now, watching it grow piece by piece, beam by beam, rivet by rivet. But still, every morning when you see it emerging from the fog, you feel that same shock of wonder, that same disbelief that human hands could create something so tall, so impossibly tall. The base is massive, 4 great legs of iron spreading wide to anchor the structure to the earth. Each leg is a maze of diagonal braces and horizontal girders, all held together by thousands upon thousands of rivets. The ironwork is precise, mathematical, each piece cut to exact specifications and fitted together like the parts of some enormous clockwork mechanism. Above the base, the tower narrows as it rises, the 4 legs gradually coming together, the latticework becoming more delicate but no less strong. Platform after platform stretches across the growing height, connected by stairs and elevators, dotted with the tiny figures of workers like yourself, moving slowly and carefully along the steel framework. You can see men up there now, even in the early morning light, tiny dark shapes against the gray sky. They move with the careful, deliberate motion of people who know that one wrong step means death. They climb the diagonal braces hand over hand, carrying tools and pieces of iron, their movements economical and sure. Steam rises from the worksite, white vapor that mixes with the fog and makes everything seem dreamlike, unreal. The steam engines that power the construction machinery send up steady plumes of white smoke, and the hot metal of the forges creates its own clouds of vapor in the cold morning air. You join the stream of workers heading toward the entrance to the construction site. The ground here is torn up from all the heavy machinery, all the materials that have been brought in and moved around. It's muddy and rutted, littered with pieces of iron, coils of rope, tools that have been dropped and abandoned. You pick your way carefully through the debris, your boots squelching in the mud. A foreman stands near the entrance, checking off names on a list, making sure everyone who's supposed to be here is here. He's a thick-set man with graying hair and hands stained black with iron dust and grease. His voice is hoarse from years of shouting over the noise of construction, but his commands are clear and precise. You give your name and he makes a mark on his list, nods toward the tower. You're assigned to the second platform today, working on the diagonal braces that will support the next level of construction. It's high work, work that requires a steady hand and a clear head, work that leaves no room for error. You collect your tools from the storage shed. Your hammer is worn smooth from years of use, the handle shaped by your hands, the head scarred from countless impacts with steel. Your rivet set fits in your hand like it was made for you, and in a way it was. You've been using these same tools for so long they feel like extensions of your own body. The tool belt goes around your waist, heavy with the weight of hammers and punches and drift pins. You check each tool, making sure it's secure, making sure it won't fall. A dropped tool from the height you'll be working at becomes a deadly missile, something that could kill a man on the ground below. You sling a coil of rope over your shoulder, feel the rough hemp fibers through your shirt. The rope is your lifeline, the thing that will catch you if you slip, if you lose your footing on the narrow steel beams. You check the knots, test the strength of the fibers, make sure there are no weak spots that might give way under strain. The climb up to the second platform begins at ground level, following a series of temporary stairs and ladders that have been built into the structure. The stairs are steep and narrow, made of rough planks bolted to the steel framework. Each step rings hollow under your boots, the sound echoing up through the empty spaces of the tower. As you climb, the fog gradually falls away beneath you. The ground becomes smaller, more distant, the people below shrinking to the size of ants. The city of Paris spreads out around you, a vast patchwork of gray rooftops and narrow streets, all of it softened by the morning mist. The air gets colder as you climb higher. The wind picks up, finding its way through the open framework of the tower, making the steel beams sing with a low, haunting note. You can feel the structure swaying slightly in the wind, a barely perceptible motion that reminds you just how high up you are, just how far you have to fall. Your legs burn from the climb, your lungs work harder in the thin air. You pause occasionally to catch your breath, to look out over the city spreading below you. From this height, Paris looks like a model, like something built for children to play with. The Seine winds through it like a silver ribbon, reflecting the gray sky. Carriages and omnibuses move through the streets like toys, their movements slow and deliberate from this distance. Other workers pass you on the stairs, some climbing up like you, others heading down after finishing their shifts. They nod as they pass, brief acknowledgments between men who share the same dangerous work. Their faces are weathered and lined, marked by years of working in sun and wind and rain. Their hands are scarred and calloused, stained permanently with iron dust and oil. You reach the second platform and step off the stairs onto solid steel decking. The platform is a framework of iron beams covered with wooden planks, creating a temporary floor high above the ground. It sways slightly in the wind, a motion you feel in your stomach, in the soles of your feet. The work area is organized with the precision of a military operation. Stacks of iron beams are arranged according to size and purpose, each piece marked with chalk numbers that correspond to the construction drawings. Boxes of rivets sit in neat rows, the metal glinting dully in the morning light. Forges glow red-hot, tended by men whose faces are blackened with soot and whose shirts are soaked with sweat despite the cold morning air. You're assigned to a crew of 4 men working on installing a diagonal brace between 2 main supports. The brace is a long piece of angle iron, heavy and unwieldy, requiring all 4 of you to maneuver it into position. The work is slow and precise, each movement calculated to avoid disaster. The brace has to be lifted into place and held there while holes are aligned and bolts are inserted. You take your position at one end, gripping the cold steel with hands that are already starting to go numb. The iron is rough and sharp, its edges catching at your gloves, threatening to tear the worn leather. The foreman calls out the count, and you lift together, feeling the weight of the steel settle into your shoulders and arms. The brace is heavier than it looks, heavier than it should be, but that's the nature of iron. It's dense and unforgiving, punishing any weakness, any moment of inattention. Step by step, you maneuver the brace into position, your movements coordinated with the other men through years of practice, through an understanding that goes beyond words. Someone calls out a warning about a gust of wind, and you all adjust your grip, lean into the steel to compensate for the pressure trying to push you off balance. The holes in the brace have to align perfectly with the holes in the main supports. There's no room for error, no tolerance for mistakes. If the holes don't line up, if the fit isn't exact, the entire piece has to come down and the process starts over. You've seen crews spend entire days getting a single piece into position, fighting the wind and the weight and the unforgiving precision required by the work. You hold the brace steady while one of your crewmates works to align the holes. He uses a drift pin, a tapered steel rod that helps guide the holes into perfect alignment. The work is delicate despite the massive scale of the materials. The drift pin has to be inserted just right, turned just so, eased into place with the kind of patience that comes from knowing that rushing will only make everything take longer. Finally, the holes align and the bolts slide into place. The relief is immediate and physical, the weight of the steel transferring from your muscles to the structure itself. You straighten up, roll your shoulders to work out the kinks, flex your fingers to get the blood flowing again. But this is just the beginning. The bolts that hold the brace in place are temporary, just strong enough to keep everything positioned while the real work begins. The real work is riveting, the process of permanently joining the pieces of steel with red-hot rivets that cool and shrink and lock everything together with a grip that will last for centuries. The forge glows orange-hot in the morning air, tended by a man whose job it is to keep the rivets at exactly the right temperature. Too cool and they won't deform properly when hammered. Too hot and they'll burn through, weakening the joint. He watches the color of the metal with the trained eye of someone who's been doing this work for decades, someone who can judge temperature by the shade of orange, by the way the steel glows in the dim light. You take your position at the forge, selecting rivets from the bin and heating them to the proper temperature. The heat from the forge warms your face and hands, a welcome relief from the cold wind that whistles through the tower's framework. The rivets glow like small suns as they heat up, their color shifting from dull red to bright orange to the perfect cherry red that means they're ready to use. Using long tongs, you lift a red-hot rivet from the forge and carry it quickly to the joint where it needs to be installed. Speed is essential now. The rivet has to be inserted and hammered while it's still hot enough to deform, still soft enough to be shaped by the hammer blows. You have maybe 30 seconds from forge to final hammer blow, 30 seconds in which everything has to go perfectly. Your partner is waiting with the rivet set, a tool that holds the rivet head steady while you hammer the tail from the other side. The rivet slides into the hole with a hiss of hot metal against cold steel, and immediately you begin hammering, your movements automatic, practiced, precise. The hammer blows ring out across the construction site, adding to the constant percussion that defines the rhythm of the work. Each blow has to be perfectly placed, perfectly timed, perfectly weighted. Too light and the rivet won't deform properly. Too heavy and you risk damaging the surrounding steel or driving the rivet through the hole entirely. The hot rivet deforms under your hammer, its tail spreading and flattening to create a permanent joint between the pieces of steel. You can feel the resistance change with each blow, feel the metal yielding and taking shape. The rivet glows bright orange for the first few blows, then gradually darkens as it cools, finally settling into the dull gray of finished steel. You step back and examine your work, running your fingers over the finished rivet head, checking for flaws or weaknesses. The rivet is perfect, flush with the surface of the steel, locked in place with a strength that will outlast your own lifetime by decades. It's a small thing, this single rivet, but it's part of something larger, something that will stand as a monument to the skill and dedication of the men who built it. The morning passes in this rhythm of heating and carrying and hammering, each rivet a small victory, each completed joint bringing the tower incrementally closer to its final form. Your arms and shoulders burn from the repetitive motion of hammering, your back aches from bending over the work, your hands grow stiff and clumsy inside your gloves. The wind picks up as the day progresses, making the platform sway more noticeably, making every movement more deliberate and careful. Gusts catch at your clothes and try to push you off balance, and you learn to anticipate them, to lean into them, to use the guy ropes that have been strung between the main supports to steady yourself when necessary. Around mid-morning, a shout goes up from one of the other work crews. Someone has dropped a tool, a wrench that falls end over end through the open framework of the tower, ringing against steel beams as it falls, finally hitting the ground far below with a distant crash. Work stops for a moment as everyone checks their own tools, makes sure everything is secure, reminds themselves of what a fall from this height would mean. The foreman calls out a reminder about safety procedures, his voice carrying clearly through the cold air. Check your tools, check your ropes, watch your footing, look out for your fellow workers. These are the rules that keep men alive at this height, the protocols that have been written in blood and learned through hard experience. Work resumes, the rhythm of hammering picking up again, the sound echoing off the surrounding buildings and rolling across the city like thunder. You return to your forge, select another rivet, watch it heat to the proper color in the glowing coals. The tongs are heavy in your hands, your grip made uncertain by the cold and the vibration from hours of hammering. The rivet glows perfect cherry red as you lift it from the forge. You move quickly but carefully, aware of the hot metal in your tongs, aware of the wind that tries to throw you off balance, aware of the narrow platform and the long fall that waits for any mistake. The rivet slides into place with a satisfying hiss, and your hammer begins its work again, shaping the hot metal with precise, measured blows. By noon, your clothes are soaked with sweat despite the cold air. The combination of physical exertion and the heat from the forge creates its own microclimate around your work area, warm and humid and thick with the smell of hot metal and coal smoke. Your shirt sticks to your back, your hair is damp with perspiration, your face is streaked with soot and iron dust. The lunch whistle blows, its sound cutting through the noise of construction like a knife. Work stops immediately, hammers falling silent, forges being banked to preserve their heat for the afternoon shift. Men straighten up from their work, stretch aching muscles, begin the careful process of making their way to the eating area. You bank your forge carefully, making sure the coals will hold their heat but won't burn too hot while you're away. The ritual of fire tending is as much a part of the work as the hammering itself. A skill passed down from blacksmith to blacksmith through generations of metalworkers. Too much air and the fire burns too hot, wasting coal and making the rivets difficult to control. Too little and the fire dies, leaving you with cold rivets that won't deform properly. The eating area is a section of the first platform that's been set aside for meals, a place where men can sit and rest and restore their strength for the afternoon's work. Long wooden tables have been set up, rough planks supported by iron brackets, scarred and stained from months of use. Benches run along either side, also made from rough lumber, worn smooth by the countless workers who have sat on them. You take your place at one of the tables, setting down your tin lunch pail with a metallic clatter that adds to the general din of men settling in for their meal. The pail is dented and scratched, its paint worn away in places to reveal the bare metal underneath. It's been your companion through months of construction work, carrying your simple meals up and down the tower, keeping your food safe from the wind and rain and iron dust that characterize life on the construction site. Inside the pail, wrapped in a piece of brown paper, is your lunch. A thick slice of dark bread, dense and coarse, spread with a thin layer of lard. A piece of cheese, hard and sharp, wrapped in cloth to keep it fresh. A small onion, its papery skin crackling as you peel it away. Simple food, working man's food, but filling and nourishing enough to keep you going through the long afternoon ahead. You eat slowly, savoring each bite, making the meal last as long as possible. This is your one break in the day, your one chance to rest your aching muscles and gather your strength for the work that remains. Around you, other workers are doing the same, eating their simple lunches with the focused attention of men who know that this food has to fuel hours more of demanding physical labor. The conversation around the table is sparse and quiet, men too tired to waste energy on unnecessary words. Someone mentions the weather, wondering if the afternoon will bring rain. Another worker talks about a new building going up across the city, comparing the construction methods to what they're doing here on the tower. A third man coughs, the sound harsh and wet, and others nod in recognition of a problem they all share. You take out your water bottle, a metal container that's grown warm from being close to your body during the morning's work. The water inside is stale and has a metallic taste from the container, but it's wet and cooling and helps wash the iron dust from your throat. You drink slowly, feeling the liquid ease the dryness in your mouth, feeling it settle into your empty stomach. The view from the eating area is spectacular, even though you've seen it dozens of times before. Paris spreads out below you like a vast map, its streets and buildings laid out in patterns that make sense only from this impossible height. The Seine curves through the city like a living thing, its surface reflecting the gray sky and the occasional patch of blue that breaks through the clouds. You can see people moving through the streets far below, tiny figures that seem to drift rather than walk, their movements slow and dreamlike from this distance. Carriages and omnibuses make their way along the main boulevards, looking like toys, like children's playthings scattered across a nursery floor. The sounds of the city rise up to you, but muffled and distant, transformed by height and wind into something almost musical. A train whistle blows somewhere in the distance, its sound carrying clearly through the cold air. You can see the smoke from the locomotive, a thin black line drawn across the sky, marking the train's passage through the outskirts of the city. It's a reminder of the larger world beyond the construction site, the world of commerce and travel and everyday life that continues while you and your fellow workers build this impossible tower piece by piece, rivet by rivet. The lunch break passes too quickly, as lunch breaks always do. The whistle blows again, calling everyone back to work, and you pack up your empty lunch pail with a sigh that you feel in your bones. Your brief rest has made your muscles stiffen up, and you know the first hour of afternoon work will be the hardest, your body protesting as it's forced back into motion after its moment of stillness. You make your way back to your workstation, your boots ringing on the steel decking, your tool belt heavy around your waist. The forge needs to be rekindled, the coals stirred back to life, the fire coaxed back to the proper temperature for heating rivets. It's a process that requires patience and skill, building the fire gradually, adding fuel carefully, monitoring the color and intensity of the flames. The afternoon shift begins with the same rhythmic hammering that defined the morning, but now you can feel the accumulated fatigue in your muscles, the way your grip on the hammer has become less certain, the way your accuracy suffers as tiredness sets in. Each rivet requires more effort now, more concentration, more conscious attention to details that were automatic in the morning. The wind has picked up since lunch, gusting across the construction site with enough force to make the tower sway perceptibly. You can feel it in your feet, in your inner ear, this slow rocking motion that reminds you constantly of how high you are, how precarious your position. The guy ropes stretch and sing in the wind, their vibrations transmitting through the steel framework like the strings of some enormous musical instrument. Clouds are building to the west, gray and heavy with the promise of rain. You glance at them periodically as you work, judging their approach, estimating how much time you have before the weather forces a halt to the construction. Rain makes the steel slippery and dangerous, makes every surface treacherous, transforms the already risky work of building the tower into something approaching suicide. Your partner at the rivet set is having trouble with his grip, his hands cramping from the morning's work, his movements becoming clumsy and uncertain. You can see the strain in his face, the way he has to concentrate on tasks that should be automatic. This is the dangerous time, when fatigue makes men careless, when accidents happen, when the margin for error disappears entirely. A rivet goes wrong, the hot metal skewing sideways as your partner's grip slips on the rivet set. The rivet head deforms improperly, creating a weak joint that will have to be cut out and redone. It's frustrating work, but there's no choice. Every rivet has to be perfect. Every joint has to meet the exacting standards set by the engineers who designed the tower. A single weak rivet could lead to catastrophic failure, could bring down entire sections of the structure. You spend the better part of an hour cutting out the bad rivet, using cold chisels and hammers to remove the deformed metal without damaging the surrounding steel. It's delicate work, requiring precision and patience, made more difficult by the wind and the growing fatigue in your hands and arms. Finally, the old rivet is removed and you can begin the process again, heating a new rivet, positioning it carefully, hammering it into its final form. The afternoon wears on with the inexorable slowness of hard physical labor. Each rivet is a small battle won, each completed joint a minor victory in the larger campaign to raise the tower higher into the sky. Your world narrows to the immediate demands of the work, the feel of the hammer in your hand, the color of the rivet in the forge, the precise placement of each blow. The clouds continue to build, and the first drops of rain begin to fall around 3 o'clock. At first it's just a few scattered drops, barely noticeable, but gradually it increases until it's a steady drizzle that makes everything slick and dangerous. The foreman calls a halt to the hot work, ordering the forges to be extinguished and the crews to move to safer tasks. You help bank your forge, smothering the fire with ash and ensuring that it's completely extinguished before leaving it unattended. The ritual of shutting down the fire is as important as the ritual of starting it, acknowledgement of the power and danger of the element you've been working with all day. With the hot work stopped, you're assigned to help with materials handling, moving pieces of steel from the ground level up to the various work platforms where they'll be needed tomorrow. It's different work from riveting but no less demanding, requiring strength and coordination and the same careful attention to safety that characterizes all work on the tower. The pieces of steel are heavy and awkward, their shapes dictated by the complex geometry of the tower's design. Each piece has been fabricated to exact specifications in workshops across the city, then transported to the construction site and hoisted up to where it's needed. Your job is to guide these pieces as they're lifted by steam-powered cranes, positioning them precisely on the growing framework of the tower. The rain makes everything more difficult. The steel becomes slippery, your gloves lose their grip, visibility is reduced by the water streaming down your face and the fog that rises from the wet ground far below. You move more slowly, more carefully, testing each handhold, each footstep, each decision that affects your safety and the safety of the men working around you. A long piece of angle iron swings slowly through the air at the end of a crane cable, rotating lazily as it rises toward your platform. You and 3 other men position yourselves to guide it into place, your hands reaching out to steady the spinning steel, your feet planted firmly on the wet decking. The iron is cold and slick with rain, its surface treacherous, but you grip it firmly and guide it toward its designated position in the growing structure. The work requires perfect coordination between the 4 of you, wordless communication that comes from months of working together, of learning each other's rhythms and reactions. Someone calls out a warning about a gust of wind, and you all adjust your grip, lean into the steel to compensate for the pressure that tries to push the piece off course. Slowly, carefully, the angle iron is maneuvered into position and temporarily bolted in place. It's satisfying work in its own way, seeing the tower grow piece by piece, watching the design take shape as abstract engineering drawings become physical reality. Each piece that goes into place is a small triumph, a victory over gravity and wind and the inherent difficulty of working at such heights. The rain continues to fall, sometimes harder, sometimes softer, but never stopping entirely. It runs off the steel framework in sheets, creating waterfalls that cascade down through the open structure of the tower. The sound of water on metal adds to the general din of the construction site, a constant pattering that underlies all the other sounds of work and machinery and human effort. Your clothes are soaked through now, rain having found its way through every seam and opening. Your shirt clings to your body, cold and uncomfortable, and water runs down your back inside your jacket. Your boots squelch with each step, filled with water that has run down your legs and found its way inside despite your best efforts to stay dry. But the work continues because it has to continue, because the tower won't build itself, because there are schedules to meet and contracts to fulfill. The rain is just another element to work around, another challenge to overcome, another test of the skill and determination that brought you to this job in the first place. As the afternoon wears toward evening, the pace of work begins to slow. Men are tired, their movements less precise, their attention beginning to wander toward thoughts of home and rest and a warm meal. The foremen begin to move through the work areas, checking on progress, making decisions about what can safely be left until tomorrow and what needs to be completed before the end of the shift. Your crew finishes positioning the last piece of steel assigned to your section, and you step back to survey the day's work. It doesn't look like much, this handful of new joints and connections, but you know that every rivet you've driven, every piece of steel you've positioned, is part of something larger and more significant than any individual contribution. The tower rises above you into the gray sky, its framework disappearing into the low clouds and rain. It's already taller than any building in Paris, taller than anything that has ever been built before, and it's still growing. Every day brings it closer to its final height, closer to completion, closer to the moment when it will stand finished and proud against the sky. The end of shift whistle blows, its sound cutting through the rain and the general noise of the construction site. Work stops immediately, tools are secured, equipment is checked and stored for the night. The ritual of ending the workday is as precise and deliberate as the ritual of beginning it, acknowledgement that tomorrow will bring more of the same challenges, more of the same demanding labor. You gather your tools and make sure they're clean and properly stored. Your hammer goes into your tool bag with the care of a craftsman, its worn handle wiped clean of water and oil. Your other tools follow, each one checked and cleaned and put away in its proper place. These tools are your livelihood, the instruments of your trade, and they deserve the respect and care that comes with that responsibility. The climb down from the work platform is slower and more treacherous than the morning's ascent. The steel stairs are slick with rain, the handrails cold and wet under your gloves. You move carefully, testing each step, each handhold, very aware of how a single slip could send you tumbling down through the framework to the ground far below. Other workers descend around you, all moving with the same careful deliberation, all understanding the risks involved in navigating wet steel at such heights. Conversations are muted, voices kept low out of respect for the concentration required to make the descent safely. This is no time for joking or horseplay, no time for anything but focused attention on the immediate task of getting down to ground level in one piece. As you descend, the city of Paris gradually rises around you, buildings that seem toy-like from the upper platforms resuming their normal proportions, streets that looked like lines on a map becoming real thoroughfares filled with real people going about their real lives. The transition from the rarefied world of high steel work to the everyday world of ground level is always jarring, always takes a moment of adjustment. You reach the ground level and step off the steel framework onto solid earth for the first time since early morning. The sensation is strange after hours of working on steel platforms that swayed in the wind, your body still expecting movement that isn't there, your inner ear still compensating for motion that has stopped. For a moment you feel slightly dizzy, disoriented by the solidity of ground that doesn't shift or sway beneath your feet. The construction site at ground level is a maze of materials and machinery, all of it made slick and treacherous by the continuing rain. Stacks of steel beams glisten wetly in the dim evening light, their surfaces reflecting the glow of gas lamps that have been lit around the perimeter of the work area. Coils of rope and cable lie scattered across the torn-up ground, and the air is thick with the smell of wet earth and iron and coal smoke from the steam engines. You make your way carefully through the debris field, your boots squelching in the mud that has been churned up by months of heavy construction traffic. Water has pooled in the low spots, creating puddles that reflect the dim sky and the flickering flames of the gas lamps. The rain continues to fall steadily, drumming against the corrugated iron roofs of the temporary buildings that house the site offices and tool storage areas. Other workers are making their way toward the site exit, all moving with the same careful, tired pace of men who have spent a long day doing dangerous work at dangerous heights. Their faces are streaked with rain and soot, their clothes dark with water and sweat, their expressions blank with the kind of exhaustion that goes deeper than mere physical tiredness. At the site gate, the same foreman who checked you in this morning is checking you out, making marks on his list as each worker passes through. His hair is plastered to his head with rain, and water drips steadily from the brim of his cap, but he maintains his post with the dedication of a man who takes his responsibilities seriously. He nods as you pass, a brief acknowledgement between men who understand the demands of the work. The streets of Paris are different in the evening rain than they were in the morning fog. Where the fog had muffled sound and softened edges, the rain creates its own sounds and rhythms. Water runs in rivulets down the cobblestones, gurgling into storm drains and overflowing gutters. The clip-clop of horse hooves echoes differently on wet stone, sharper and more distinct, punctuated by the splash of wheels rolling through puddles. Gas lamps burn behind rain-streaked windows, their light warm and yellow against the gray evening. Shopkeepers are closing their doors for the day, pulling in their sidewalk displays and hanging closed signs in their windows. The city is winding down, settling into the rhythm of evening, preparing for the night ahead. You walk slowly through the narrow streets, your boots echoing hollowly on the wet cobblestones. The rain has driven most people indoors, leaving the streets relatively empty except for other workers making their way home from various jobs around the city. A few omnibuses still run their routes, their windows glowing with interior light, their horses moving carefully on the slick streets. The walk home gives you time to feel the full weight of the day's work settling into your body. Your shoulders ache from hours of lifting and hammering, your back is stiff from bending over your work, your hands are cramped into permanent semi-claws from gripping tools and steel beams. The constant vibration from hammering has left your arms feeling numb and disconnected, and you flex your fingers repeatedly, trying to work feeling back into them. Your work clothes are thoroughly soaked now, the fabric heavy with water and clinging uncomfortably to your skin. The rain has washed some of the iron dust from your shirt, but it's been replaced by the general grime of the city streets, the mixture of mud and soot and industrial pollution that characterizes Paris in this age of rapid growth and construction. A church bell tolls somewhere in the distance, marking the hour, its sound muffled by the rain and the general dampness that seems to absorb all the sharp edges of the city's normal cacophony. Other bells join it, creating a complex pattern of chimes and peals that roll across the city like gentle thunder, a reminder of time passing, of days ending, of the eternal rhythm that underlies all human activity. You turn into your street, a narrow alley lined with tall, narrow buildings that seem to lean in toward each other, creating a canyon of stone and mortar that channels the wind and concentrates the sound of rain on roof tiles and shutters. Light leaks from around the edges of closed shutters, and you can smell cooking food, the simple but nourishing meals that working families prepare at the end of long days. The building where you live is indistinguishable from the others on the street, its facade weathered and stained by decades of city life. The wooden door is heavy and scarred, its paint peeling in places to reveal the gray wood underneath. You push it open and step into the narrow hallway, shaking the rain from your jacket and stamping your feet on the worn wooden floor. The stairs creak under your weight as you climb to your floor, the same stairs you descended in darkness this morning, now illuminated by a single gas lamp that burns with a steady, yellow flame. The walls are close on either side, and you can hear the sounds of other residents behind their doors, the muffled conversations and domestic activities that mark the end of the working day. Your room is small and spare, but it's dry and relatively warm, heated by a small coal stove that one of your roommates has kept burning during the day. The three other men who share the space are already there, in various stages of changing out of their work clothes and preparing for the evening meal. They nod as you enter, brief acknowledgments between men who are too tired for extensive conversation. You peel off your wet jacket and hang it on a nail driven into the wall, where it will drip steadily throughout the night, hopefully drying enough to wear again tomorrow. Your work shirt comes off next, the fabric stiff with dried sweat and damp with rain, and you hang it beside the jacket. The air in the room feels cool against your bare skin, and you shiver slightly as your body adjusts to being out of the wet clothes. From a small basin in the corner, you take a piece of rough soap and begin the process of washing away the day's accumulation of grime and sweat. The water is cold and has been used by others before you, but it's wet and it helps remove the worst of the dirt and iron dust that has ground itself into your skin. You scrub your hands and forearms carefully, trying to work the black stains out from under your fingernails, trying to soften the calluses that have built up from months of gripping tools and steel. Your hands are your most important tools, and you inspect them carefully as you wash, checking for cuts or scrapes that might become infected, noting new calluses or areas where the skin has been worn raw by the day's work. Your palms are permanently stained with iron dust and oil, the lines and creases highlighted in black, creating a map of your trade that no amount of washing will ever completely erase. One of your roommates has prepared a simple meal that you'll all share, a pot of thin soup made from vegetables and scraps of meat, flavored with herbs and stretched with water to make it go further. There's also bread, dark and coarse but filling, and a small piece of cheese that will be divided 4 ways. It's not much, but it's warm and nourishing and represents the kind of cooperation that makes life possible for working men in the city. You take your place at the small wooden table that serves as the room's only furniture besides the sleeping pallets. The soup is served in tin bowls that have been dented and repaired many times, and you eat slowly, savoring the warmth and the way the simple food begins to restore your strength. The bread is tough and requires careful chewing, but it's filling and helps absorb the soup and settle your empty stomach. Conversation around the table is minimal, limited to practical matters like the weather and work conditions and plans for tomorrow. These men are your companions in the daily struggle of working-class life, but you're all too tired and too focused on the immediate needs of rest and nutrition to waste energy on unnecessary words. There's a comfortable silence between you, the silence of men who understand each other's lives without needing to discuss them. After the meal, you help clean the few dishes, washing them in the same basin you used to clean yourself, drying them with a rough towel and putting them away for tomorrow's use. Everything in the room has its place and purpose. Everything is used and reused and cared for because replacement is expensive and money is always scarce. You prepare your clothes for tomorrow, checking your work shirt for tears that need mending, examining your trousers for weak spots that might give way under stress. Your boots get special attention, the leather cleaned as well as possible and checked for damage that might affect their ability to protect your feet on the steel framework of the tower. These boots are your lifeline, the interface between your body and the treacherous surfaces you work on every day. Your tools receive the same careful attention, each one cleaned and inspected and properly stored. Your hammer is wiped clean of the day's accumulation of metal filings and oil, its head checked for chips or cracks that might affect its performance. Your other tools are similarly cared for, because a tool that fails at the wrong moment can mean injury or death at the heights where you work. The room gradually settles into the quiet rhythm of evening, 4 tired men preparing for sleep, each following his own small rituals of preparation and rest. Someone coughs, the sound harsh and wet in the close air of the room. Another man stretches and yawns, his joints popping audibly as he works out the kinks from the day's labor. You lie down on your straw mattress, feeling the familiar lumps and depressions that have been shaped by your body over months of use. The mattress is thin and not particularly comfortable, but it's dry and relatively warm, and after a day of hard physical labor, any horizontal surface feels like luxury. You pull your rough wool blanket up to your chin, feeling the coarse fabric scratch slightly against your neck. The sounds of the city filter through the walls and windows of the building. Rain continues to drum against the roof tiles and run down the gutters with a liquid murmur that's almost musical. Somewhere in the distance, a dog barks, and another answers from a different direction. A cart rumbles past on the cobblestones below, its wheels splashing through puddles, its driver probably hurrying to finish his deliveries before full darkness falls. Your body begins to relax into the mattress, the tension of the day slowly releasing from your muscles. Your shoulders settle, your back unclenches, your hands finally unclench from the permanent grip position they've held all day. The ache in your joints becomes a dull, distant thing, overshadowed by the simple relief of lying down, of not having to support your own weight, of not having to maintain balance on narrow steel beams hundreds of feet above the ground. You think about tomorrow, about the work that will need to be done, about the weather and whether it will be clear enough for hot work or whether you'll spend another day handling materials in the rain. You think about the tower, about how much higher it's grown since you started working on it, about how much more there is to do before it's finished. But these thoughts are distant and abstract, overwhelmed by the immediate physical reality of exhaustion and the approaching promise of sleep. One of your roommates is already snoring softly, his breathing regular and deep. Another turns over on his mattress with a creak of rope and wood, mutters something incomprehensible, settles back into stillness. The room is warm from the coal stove and the presence of 4 sleeping men, creating a microclimate that's almost comfortable despite the rain and cold outside. You close your eyes and feel sleep beginning to gather around the edges of your consciousness, like fog rolling in from the river, soft and encompassing and irresistible. Your breathing slows and deepens, matching the rhythm of the rain on the roof, the rhythm of the city settling into night, the rhythm of countless other working men and women throughout Paris who are ending their days in similar small rooms, similar circumstances, similar exhaustion. The tower rises in your mind's eye, its iron framework stark against the gray sky, its platforms and girders and diagonal braces all precisely positioned, all held together by the rivets you and thousands of other workers have driven home with careful hammer blows. It's beautiful in its way, this structure you're helping to build, beautiful in its mathematical precision, its defiance of gravity, its bold assertion that human skill and determination can create something unprecedented in the world. But these thoughts fade as sleep takes hold, replaced by the deeper rhythms of rest and recovery, of a body repairing itself for tomorrow's challenges, of a mind letting go of the day's concerns and surrendering to the ancient necessity of sleep. Your breathing becomes regular and deep, your muscles relax completely, your consciousness drifts away from the small room and the narrow bed and the sounds of the rainy Paris night. Sleep comes like a tide, rising slowly and then all at once, carrying you away from the immediate concerns of work and weather and physical discomfort, carrying you into the deeper currents of rest and dreams and the body's own wisdom about what it needs to continue functioning. You sleep deeply and dreamlessly, the sleep of someone who has earned their rest through honest labor, through the expenditure of physical effort in service of something larger than themselves. The night passes quietly around you, rain continuing to fall on the city, washing the streets clean, filling the gutters and storm drains, running off the growing iron framework of the tower and pulling on the construction site far below. Other workers in other small rooms throughout the city sleep the same deep sleep of exhaustion, their bodies recovering from their own versions of the day's labor, their own contributions to the vast project of building and maintaining and expanding the great city. Hours pass in this deep, restorative sleep, your body cycling through the various stages of rest, repairing muscle tissue, consolidating memories, preparing for another day of the same demanding work. Your hands relax completely for the first time since dawn, your grip finally releasing, your fingers straightening and softening. Your shoulders drop, your back straightens, all the tensions and compensations of high steel work temporarily forgotten. The rain continues through the night, sometimes harder, sometimes softer, but never stopping entirely. It runs off the roofs and down the walls, pools in the courtyards and flows along the gutters, carrying with it the dust and grime of the day, washing the city clean for tomorrow's accumulation of soot and smoke and industrial residue. In your sleep, you don't dream of falling or of heights or of the dangerous work that fills your waking hours. Instead, your dreams are simple and peaceful, fragments of memory and sensation that reflect the deeper rhythms of your life. You dream of the sound of hammers, but distant and musical, like church bells. You dream of the river, but warm and welcoming, not the cold, distant Seine seen from impossible heights. You dream of bread, fresh and warm, and of soup that fills your stomach completely. The coal in the small stove burns down gradually, the fire settling into glowing embers that will hold their heat through the night but won't consume too much fuel. The room cools slowly but remains comfortable, warmed by the presence of 4 sleeping men and insulated by the thick stone walls of the old building. Toward dawn, the rain begins to slacken, though it doesn't stop entirely. The steady drumming on the roof becomes intermittent pattering, and the constant gurgle of water in the gutters becomes occasional rushing as accumulated water finds its way to the drains. The city begins to stir in the pre-dawn darkness, though you remain deeply asleep, your body claiming every possible moment of rest before the next day's work begins. The first sounds of morning are distant and muffled, filtering through your sleep without fully waking you. A church bell tolls the hour, its sound carrying clearly through the damp air. A cart rumbles past on the cobblestones below, earlier than usual, its driver probably trying to make up time lost to yesterday's rain. Somewhere in the building, a door closes softly, and footsteps echo in the stairwell as someone begins their day earlier than the rest. But you sleep on, deeply and peacefully, your body still claiming the rest it needs, your mind still processing the experiences of the previous day, your dreams still carrying you through landscapes more gentle and forgiving than the iron framework of the tower that dominates your waking hours. Sleep holds you in its embrace, protective and restorative, preparing you for whatever challenges the new day will bring. The room gradually lightens as dawn approaches, though the heavy clouds and continuing drizzle keep the morning dim and gray. One of your roommates stirs, coughs softly, settles back into sleep. Another turns over with a creak of rope and wood, mutters something in his dreams, returns to the deep breathing of profound rest. You remain still and deeply asleep, your body positioned exactly as it settled hours ago, your breathing regular and deep, your face relaxed and peaceful. The work clothes hanging on their nails have dried somewhat during the night, though they remain damp and will be uncomfortable to put on when morning finally comes. Your tools wait in their careful arrangement, clean and ready for another day of use, another day of shaping hot metal with precise hammer blows. The small coal stove holds its heat, the embers glowing dully in the darkness, providing just enough warmth to keep the room comfortable without being wasteful of fuel. Everything in the room speaks of careful economy, of lives lived close to the margin, of the constant balance between earning enough to survive and spending too much to maintain the tools and shelter necessary for earning. As the night deepens toward its darkest hour before dawn, you sleep the profound sleep of physical exhaustion, your body taking full advantage of the horizontal rest, your muscles releasing all the tensions of high steel work, your hands finally unclenching from their permanent grip on tools and iron. This is the sleep that working men have always known, the deep rest that comes after honest labor, the unconsciousness that prepares the body for another day of the same demanding work. Rain continues to whisper against the windows and drum softly on the roof, a gentle sound that enhances rather than disturbs the peace of sleep. The city settles into its own rest, the great machine of Paris winding down for the night, its millions of inhabitants seeking their own versions of rest and recovery in preparation for tomorrow's challenges. And in your dreams, you are not climbing iron framework or hammering hot rivets or balancing on narrow steel beams high above the streets of Paris. In your dreams, you are walking on solid ground, your feet firmly planted, your hands free, your body moving without the constant awareness of height and danger that characterizes your waking hours. These dreams are a gift, a respite from the reality of your dangerous trade, a few hours of peace before the day begins again with its demands and risks and small victories. The night passes in this deep, healing sleep, your body and mind both finding the rest they need, both preparing for whatever tomorrow will bring. And tomorrow will bring more of the same, more climbing and hammering and careful work at impossible heights, more contribution to the great project that is transforming the skyline of Paris one rivet at a time. But for now, there is only sleep, only rest, only the profound peace that comes at the end of a day of honest work well done.